Hello, everybody. Welcome into another edition of HeadCoachU. I am Bryan Fischer, joined, as always, by former BYU and Virginia head coach Bronco Mendenhall. And the line of guests continue, Bronco. We got the reigning Mountain West champion, Jeff Tedford of Fresno State. Jeff, thank you so much for stopping on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely. Well, it's interesting. We've had some coaches on before that have been coaching, at a place they know well, like you do there with the Bulldogs. Do any of your players know how good a player you were back in the day?
Well, yeah, I think with social media these days, they're able to find some of that. Not like I'm throwing the film on, for them, but yeah, they look it up and they give me a hard time. And a couple of things they show here from time to time, just for alumni who have done things here and, had a good experience here as a player, and then coached here as an assistant for 6 years before I went to Oregon and then went to be the head coach at Cal, So I've had a really great opportunity to know people or have people on my staff that know people from our program from really 1977 through now, So it's great when people come back to be able to interact with them. Some of my teammates this last year, we had the 40th reunion for our championship team that I played on in 1982. So I didn't get a chance to spend much time with them, obviously, because I was on the field. But going down the ramp and just seeing them and give them a high five on the way to the field was awesome, And alumni is big here, and we take a lot of pride and tradition in what's gone on here.
There's a really cool adage, and in warrior cultures, they have this saying that when you forget your stories, you lose your culture. And I think what you said is really profound. Having having coaches on your staff or others around you that have played or were at Fresno State, right? Those stories have a better chance to be passed on, right? When you have staff members that were at Fresno. Was that something that you targeted specifically, like when you were assembling your staff and obviously you're going back to a place that you were? How important do you think that is? And was that intentional in how you did that?
Yeah, it was. And just got really fortunate because a lot of us had worked together a long time ago. And then everybody kind of spread out and did their own things, went to the NFL, went to big time programs, SC, Michigan, LSU. I mean, all over the place, right? So having those guys come back, bringing a wealth of information, has really helped me kind of lean on them of how they've done things. But what you're talking about, Bronco, is they do understand the traditions here. Mm-hmm. They played for Coach Sweeney. They coach for Coach Sweeney. And so Coach Sweeney's like the dog father here, right? I mean, he really put this place on the map. And so we have such a great deal of respect. And I think it's our obligation to pass that along, and everybody who's run down that ramp and wore a Bulldog uniform, that's what we're doing this for. A lot of people take pride in what we're doing. And all these stories that all these coaches have and experiences, be it here, which people were here for a long time under Coach Hill, some under Coach Sweeney. And so there's a lot of trust that goes into what's going on. And they really have a passion to be here. It means a lot to them to be here, this staff, and so it's a great working relationship. And then we get to banter back and forth and laugh and joke about some of the times that we had back when, right? And all of a sudden you turn around and shoot, it's 30 years ago, and it's, wow, where did the time go? But it's really cool to gain information from all these guys who was everywhere, but they still understand the traditions here. And so it's awesome to come to work every day.
Yeah, I think they not only understand it, but they value it, right? So Fresno has a special place in their heart because of their past and how it helped them become. And so they probably carry themselves like they're fortunate to be there, which has to be a positive effect on your players as well, to know what kind of special place it is.
You're exactly right, Bronco, because they do. They have a great feeling about the place, and they do value it. And I think we all feel fortunate to be together, and we can trust each other. And like I said, we tell stories. We have background to draw from of, hey, you remember this game, the SC game back in '92, or, whatever it is, all the different games that we can draw on those experiences and say, hey, this thing coming up is kind of like that, way back when. You remember that? And, so, and then, of course, being around Coach Sweeney and Coach Hill, those guys are legends here, right? And so Coach Hill still comes around all the time, so it's great to see him. But, we always talk about all the things that Sweeney taught us, right? He was an awesome coach, but he was a grinder, right? And football's changed over time. You can't approach the game or kids or things like that the way we were approached back then. And, but the values and the things that he taught on a daily basis about hard work and dedication and, toughness, that's kind of what our program's built on. And so that hasn't gone away. So the traditions that were built with Coach Sweeney are still here because there's a lot of his disciples that are here. Mm-hmm. And because Pat Hill kind of took that too, because Pat Hill coached under Coach Sweeney, so he understood those things too. So it's a pretty unique situation here that a lot of our guys, our coaching staff, really understand and value, like you said, the opportunity to be here and to be around these kids and to pass on their traditions. And it means something to them. It's not, they're just not hearing it and trying to pass on the message. They live the message. And so to your point, I think there's a lot of value in that.
One of the things that I think really establishes great programs and helps traditions continue once they've been facilitated and started. Just a quick story. I came out of junior college, went to Oregon State. The first college game I played at Oregon State was at Fresno State. Coach Sweeney was the coach. Mm-hmm. And I was playing safety, and I remember getting out-jumped by a 5'8" guy named Stephon Baker, the touchdown maker. And,
yeah.
Anyway, I remember the Fresno State environment even then. My point is I think Fresno has done a really nice job of matching that community with a style of leader and a style of play that really works and meshes well together. So Coach Sweeney, I think, man, it felt like he was a perfect fit in Fresno at that time. Coach Hill felt like a perfect fit in Fresno, Pat, at that time. And I think, and you're the next, right, of every bit as strong, if not stronger, of a fit at the right time for that place. And I like the specificity of the connections, but also the history that keeps being perpetuated. And I think that's had a lot to do with Fresno's continued success.
Yeah, I would agree with you. This is a blue-collar town, and our team really reflects blue-collar work. Our kids love to work. It's hot here. Mm-hmm. They take a lot of pride in what goes on. But we set an attendance record last year here, and so that was awesome. And so I'm so appreciative for the support that people show up every week, and they have a lot of energy. You go down that ramp, a lot of people don't like to play here. It's not the easiest place to play, because the fans are pretty hard on you. Yeah. But it is. It's great because how our team goes, what I have figured out in the last few years is kind of the attitude of and the energy level of the town. It's if we have a great year, you could just feel the energy around the town. And they all live it. And they don't forget it. There's a lot and that's the thing. I played 40 years ago. I played 1982, but there's still so many people here that, we were down 28-7 in the California Bowl against Bowling Green and came back to win. And I swear when I was on the field, the stadium felt empty, but I can't tell you, I go to Costco or wherever in town and everybody says they stayed to the end. It's like, oh yeah, sure you did. But no, it's a blue collar town, and it fits the way we like to work and the way we like to play, or at least that we strive to play. And so it's a great match.
I love the idea in leadership and program design of differentiation. And so what I like about and appreciate Fresno and the style of play, I think so many institutions just hire the coach and try to have his style fit that community in that place. And yeah, it might be successful, but it doesn't seem to go quite deep enough as a coach that really has roots at the place, tries to match the style of play to the type of people that are there and have kind of a deeper connection. And I think there's something special when that happens.
Yeah, I would agree with you, and we've been very fortunate in that way to have head coaches here. And Coach DeRuiter did a nice job here too
Yeah.
in his stint here. He wasn't a Fresno guy, but he did a nice job for a couple years here, when Derek Carr and those guys were here, and Devontae.
Yeah.
And, just really fortunate the first time to be able to come back here and take it over. It was a 1-win team at the time, and we flipped it to 10 wins the first year and 12 wins the next year. So taking over a program, it's good to have familiarity, right, with what the town's about. I think it would be, maybe a little bit more difficult for an outsider to come in and understand exactly, what the attitude is here, and the style of play, and and to be able to relate to the fans about old history, and to be able to talk to people on the street and in the restaurants and around town about that. There's a lot of people who have been here a long time that are Bulldog fans, right? And so it's great to reminisce with them, and they take a lot of pride in the things that we've done, over time. And that's the thing, going all the way back to 77. I got here in 81, but I knew a lot of the guys on the 77 team who won a championship, the first championship. And then 82, we won the championship. And so to go all the way back to those people, a lot of those guys are still in town. Yeah. And so I can lean on a lot of those guys too, and the support there for fundraising, for things that we need, whatever, you kind of know who to go to. And, there's great support here. And now to have the staff back, like we talked about earlier, makes it even more special, because they have a group of people that they've been in contact with. Because when I left to go play in the CFL, I was gone for 6 years and then came back as an assistant. And then I left to go to Oregon to be the offensive coordinator. And then I went to Cal for 11 years. But all during that time was when Pat was here, right? And so we have a couple people, probably 4 coaches on our staff right now that coached under Pat, Sweeney and Pat. So they know even when I was gone doing other things, they were here. So to have a connection to all the alumni for that many years, is pretty cool, because don't look now, but all of a sudden we're recruiting their kids, right? I mean, how many kids of the guys that we coach are coming through now? So there's a high trust level there, because I feel like we've done things the right way, and I think the people who left here appreciate that. You know how it is, Bronco, with kids at the time when you're coaching them. Sometimes you're their father figure, you're the disciplinarian, and sometimes they don't appreciate it at the time. But then when they grow up, then it's like, wow, I really take some of that and value some of the experiences and lessons that I learned there. And so they're good with their kids coming back to that same environment.
Yeah. One of the things that just struck me as I was hearing you talk about the familiarity of your staff and yourself and the community, there's and the listeners of our podcast have heard me talk about a book called The Speed of Trust, but familiarity increases speed, right? And so you inherited a program, but with coaches, or I would say you retook over a program, and with coaches that already had familiarity. When I went to the University of Virginia from BYU, I didn't know anyone in Virginia. I didn't know anything about the East Coast or the Mid-Atlantic region, nor did my staff who I had brought from BYU. It took an entire year of nothing but discovery. Right. And then after that, we became bowl eligible again and got some traction. So I think it facilitates the speed. And as you said, that's kind of based on the trust of those that were already in the community that knew you. And it makes a lot of sense. One of the things I wanted to touch on quickly, and you've coached for a long time, and you talked about maybe having the stadium feel empty, or how maybe the town, the energy kind of rides on the season that you have. And I've felt that as well in the towns and the places that I've been. And there's kind of a conditional support based on you playing well, and they want you to win, but there's a results component as well. How have you managed the pressures and the outcome orientation of just college football, while you're doing your job and developing young kids and being with a great staff? How have you managed that personally?
Well, Bronco, it's the expectation's high no matter what, right? Yeah. And so we've been pretty fortunate that most years going into the season, the expectation is pretty high. And so you have to live up to that expectation. Case in point, this last year, we started out 1-4, right? And these days with social media, it's so easy for just to get bashed, and while I don't pay much attention to it, I know our kids are getting it because our kids are into it. So you really have to balance, in my opinion, you have to balance that, and you can't put your head in the sand. You have to know what's happening. And so you really need to continue to coach trust and confidence, which is not just at that point. We do it all year long. So then it's not something that we're trying to turn on at the last second. It's something that we compete and we strive to do every day. And so we're 1-4, people were wondering, what's going on here, and so they get a little uneasy because the expectation's high. And so thankfully, because of our strong foundation and the trust level and belief that our kids had, we just talked about keeping it right here in this room. We're the ones who know best. Yeah. We lost a heartbreaker to Oregon State on the last play of the game. SC, our quarterback, went down with an ankle. And so we had to bounce back. And so then we went on a 9-game winning streak, and we have the third longest winning streak in the country right now. But it's a challenge, there's no doubt. But I think if your program has a strong foundation, right, and great kids and senior leadership, and I don't so much lean on the word leadership anymore, because I would tell you, every kid I would bring in here and ask what kind of leader are they, I could write it on the back of a piece of paper and turn it over and show you what they're going to say. They're going to say I'm a leader by example. Yeah. Right. And why is that? It's because, in my opinion, I think it's because everybody thinks the leader's got to be perfect. He's got to hold people accountable. He's got to make the team speeches. He's got to yell at kids or whatever. Right. And then only a certain few or a certain group of people are eligible to lead, because a lot of people who aren't playing don't feel like they're eligible to lead. And so I've kind of leaned more on being a motivator, because everyone's eligible to be a motivator, right? And to motivate through good self-talk principles, of bringing people in the right direction and finding kids doing right. Like I talked to my coaching staff, when you talk about trust and confidence, to build confidence, because inherently as a coach, we're always talking about things they did wrong, right? Hey, you got to do this better. You got to do that better. That wasn't right. All that. And I don't care if it's just touching the line, and they touch the line, find them doing something right and give them praise, right? And so we lean a little bit more on motivation that can bring it even from the young guys can do that. They don't have to be the starting guy who has 3,000 yards passing or 1,000 yards receiving or whatever it may be. It can be all of them. And so we try to bring that along early in our program, so that when we do hit adversity, everybody's in the same situation, because you're going to hit adversity as this part of the game, right? And that's how you deal with adversity. That's critical. And so I think that's a daily thing. It starts in the off season. It starts all the way through, and we try to create situations where they're stressful, so that we're kind of training the brain to deal with adversity and anxiety and things like that. So we try to do our best to create those situations, and and we compete in everything we do, even in the off season. If we're going to do our mat drills and run through different things, we're competing. We're on teams. We're competing against one another. We're competing against ourselves, so that when we get in the season, it's just second nature, And so when we went 1-4 last year, the people who believed in us were in the room, right? And that was the big thing, because that's really all that mattered. We had to deal with the outside, of course, and they just had to pay attention to what was going on, in our building every single day. But you can't turn your back on knowing that they're getting some backlash from people. You guys suck or this or that or whatever, right? And we knew better. When we were 1-4, I walked into the meeting room on Sunday and I said, the conference champions are sitting right here in this room.
Mm-hmm.
And guys just kept working and kept believing and trusting, and then we went on a run.
I think there's something really magical about a consistent leader, even in the face of adversity or 1-4, when they see the leader, you, stand in front with confidence and belief in them, and still seeing and praising the simple successes that they're doing along the way. There's power in that, and I think the influence of a coach at that point is amazing. There was for those our listeners they might not have heard something called the Stockdale paradox. So Admiral James Stockdale was the highest ranking officer in the Vietnam War. He was captured and spent up to 7 years at the Hanoi Hilton and POW camp, and many of that, up to 4 years by some accounts, was in solitary confinement. And they were asking him, and he makes it out. They were asking him who made it, and then who didn't make it in terms of those challenges. And sometimes 1-4. Well, I'm not comparing that to his, right. It was just a more significant challenge. But he said the optimists struggled most, where they'd set a random date that they would be out by Valentine's. Certainly I'll be out, or by Christmas, or by my birthday. But there wasn't anything really substantial, or they were changing to be out by then. But he said who made it were those that acknowledged the brutal facts, but never lost faith in the end of the story. And so he knew every day for him it was going to be hard. And so, to your point, acknowledging the outside influences, and social media is pretty tough when you're not doing well.
Right.
But so his counsel to all of those that were under his care: let's acknowledge how hard it's going to be, but never lose faith. We are going to make it. And that combination seemed to help them. And so I think you just kind of expressed something similar.
Yeah. And we started out the season, with a motto of champions are won, or championships are won when purpose plus preparation plus commitment meet opportunity, right? So each and every week we still talked about the purpose. We still talked about what the preparation needed to be. And then we talked about, okay, what kind of commitment do we need to have? And so the commitment, there's a broad definition of commitment, right? Sacrifice, everything that we're doing, so even though we're 1-4, it doesn't mean that we lose our commitment. This commitment has to be there. The purpose each week still needs to be there. And the preparation needs to be consistent. It's not like we did change one thing. We needed to tackle better. So we just changed some drills, right? But we didn't change the mindset, really. It wasn't like now we need to do something different this week or anything like that. It was just what the preparation was going to be. We try to stay as consistent as we can, and then it was kind of a cool thing when we got to that point, because then it's like when you're 1-4, people start looking ahead, like, what's this season going to look like at the end, right? They start looking at the big picture. So Winston Churchill had a quote that it's a mistake to look too far ahead, that the chain of destiny is accomplished one link at a time. Mm-hmm. So we kind of took that and put it together with each week there was a link, and we left the link open. And then when we accomplished that, we closed the link, because we were building a chain, right? Mm-hmm. And so we would close that link and open the next one and put whatever that may be in there for that week, and then it was, bowl eligibility, it was conference championship, it was 10-win season, it was, bowl game victory, whatever it was, right? And so that was pretty cool, because it kept us kind of focused one thing at a time, where we didn't look so far ahead. Because I think when you're 1-4, it's pretty easy to say to all these seniors and everybody, oh man, this is a lost season, Then they start thinking about themselves, right? Now it's about me. How am I going to get prepared for the next level? And one of the things, Bronco, I was so impressed with our team, in this day and age, when you're going to go to a bowl game, there's a lot of people who opt out of bowl games, right? And not one of our kids ever even mentioned it. Not one ever even thought, hey, I'm thinking about this, or what do you think, coach, or nothing. It never came up, right? Because that chain, they knew they need to finish that chain and get that last link. And that was a 10-win season, a bowl victory, those type of things. So kind of drawing on those things to try to stay focused, and not to look too far ahead at the big picture. Let's just stay 1 week at a time, take care of the little things, the big things to take care of themselves. And that's how we kind of approach overcoming that 1-4.
It was a kind of a masterful use of symbolism to keep focus in the present. And I love the idea of the open chain, right? Because that really, to get that link closed, that really specifies this week and these things. And it kind of crystallizes and keeps people in the present, which is where the success is going to happen anyway. The work needs to happen now rather than in the future to close the link. And so I love the example of the symbolism within that. And so going back to the next thought that you just shared, so college football has changed quite a bit. And one of those changes is the perception of bowl games and playing or not playing as a player. And changes are happening right in front of us. And I'm sure you're in the middle of it with some of the rule changes. Everyone talks about the portal and everyone talks about NIL. And I'm not so concerned about really talking about those, but have you seen maybe changes within players or young people or their attitudes or anything else? I'm just anxious to hear from all your experience of coaching if you think that generationally there's changes or if the game and the rules are kind of influencing that.
Well, obviously the big one is the portal and NIL. And I don't think there's really anything wrong with the portal or NIL. I think the combination of the two is problematic. Yeah. And, because you spend a lot of time and resources in training kids and bringing them through your program. And then all of a sudden, it's kind of the haves and the have-nots. We just happen to be part of the have-nots. There's a lot of people who have a lot more resources than we have, right? Mm-hmm. So if they want to take one of our kids, it's going to be pretty difficult for us. And I can't hold them against them for doing it. But it's not just what happens with the X's and O's on the field. It's they become leaders on your team, right? They're the voices of your team that are now leaving. And that becomes problematic to me, in that they've listened to the message for 2-3 years, right? And now they're the people who are going to take this team, that's their team, and they get offered a bunch of money and they're gone, right? And so thankfully, we haven't had a lot of that happen. Our kids are pretty good about it, but I can't blame them if they do that. But so, that is what it is. But as far as just day to day and the mindset of our players, I don't see a lot of difference. I really don't. Our kids are hardworking kids. They love playing football. They love it. They love hard work. I'm not kidding. They're down in the stadium doing PRPs, player run practices, and we're up by our offices and we just hear them hollering and screaming and just having a great time. It's like, man, our guys love playing football. Yeah. If it's supposed to end at 10:45, they won't come up that ramp till 11:15. They want one more series, one more rep. They love it. And so, so I think that's pretty consistent with how it's always been. But the other things, we have to manage it. Right. And I hope at some point there's some kind of parameters that come into this thing. I don't know what's going to happen with college football. When you talk about the haves and the have-nots, is it going to be this, elite, 60 teams that do this, and then there's these other people that do this? I don't know where it's going. Yeah. But it's we can't afford to play in that realm, right? Yeah. And but we get good players, and we're engaged in NIL in our lane, and that's it, right? I mean, we don't have the resources to do, what other people are doing. But as far as what's changed, some of the rule changes that are coming up, things like that, I'm anxious to see how that's gonna affect, what's happening, and but the game is great. I think the game's great. I think it's in a good place. It's It's very competitive. I think you got to bring your A game every week to win. There's a lot of parity, at least in our conference and the teams that we play. Obviously, we play Pac-12 teams, and we're playing Purdue this year, and so we play a really tough schedule. I think we don't play BYU. Back when we played you, man, it's no cakewalk playing BYU, and they're tough.
So I've got to share a story quickly, and I don't even know if you remember this, but I was a first-year head coach. I'm at Brigham Young University, and our bowl game, I think it was our first year, we play Cal, and Coach Tedford is the coach at Cal, and we're playing in Las Vegas. And so at BYU, lots of players on the team are married, and many have children, and then some are getting married with the bowl game being their honeymoon. And so we were talking before the game, and I'm just lamenting of baby carriages and binkies and bubbies and strollers and all that.
Yeah, I do remember that.
And Coach Tedford is the hotel they're staying at. There's a Victoria's Secret lingerie fashion show happening in their hotel. And so he was talking about a different kind of challenge. And we were before the game, and I was just chuckling. And Cal wins. We have a chance. We're trying to drive at the end to tie it or something, but Cal wins the game. But I remember the pregame conversation more than I remember the game.
Yeah, no, it was really funny because we stayed at the Hard Rock, right? And we pull up the first day of the game, when we're just getting to the bowl game. The buses pull up, and there's these 4 limos parked in front of our buses, and the doors open up, and all these ladies get out in lingerie. And I looked at my DFO. I said, "We don't stand a chance in hell to win this game." So it was just trying to balance that. And then when we were talking, I'm like, "Man, you wouldn't believe what's going on." You said, "I got my own problems. I'm trying to find strollers and baby milk." What a different spectrum, right? But
which is so much fun in college football, right? Because just the different programs have different challenges, but there's a commonality during the game. One of the things you said that I was intrigued by, there's so much fun that's inherent with coaching young people that love to play the game, and I'm wondering, like in your selection and assessment and recruiting, what you're doing to find or identify, or are you looking specifically for kids that really love to play, and how what do you see, and how do you look for that?
Yeah, I think that's critical, right? And just to find out what their mindset is, and do they talk ball? Do they have, we have a whole list of things in there, what we're looking for with recruiting, and we say, the recruits will tell you who they are. You just got to listen. Right. So you can't be blinded by, okay, this guy's a 4-star and blah, blah, blah. But we try to do our best to find out everything about them at their school, from their teacher, from the staff around the school, to find out what kind of kids they are. And then through our conversations, if talking ball, do they love it? Do they love talking ball? Right. Or do they want to change the subject to something else, And so we've been very fortunate. It's not 100% by any means, but what ends up happening, I think, Bronco, really is, even if they come and they don't, they learn to love it, because that's what most our team's about. So they gravitate toward all of our guys who have been brought up through it and are in it and understand what the work's about and what it takes to be a champion and those type of things, And then I think we do make it fun, the competition piece. I think it's not monotonous. I think, just getting out and conditioning, just running and to run and things like that. We do things we try to make it to where it keeps their mind on the game. Yeah. Like if we're running conditioning, we will do things where we're looking over the sideline first to train ourselves to see what the plays are, right? Whether they're offensive play boards or defensive play boards, or what's the personnel going to be. So there has to be thought put into it. So we try hard not to be monotonous about what we're doing. We try to make it fun for them, to where they are playing football every day. Even if it's conditioning, they're playing football, right? So because they have to think it. They have to think football. They have to be able to perform when they're tired or fatigued. They still have to pay attention to the details of what the calls are. And, so we've been very fortunate to have kids who do love playing football. Maybe not all of them right in the beginning, but they learn to do it at a young age.
Yeah, that's powerful. And I love the application of making it relevant, because sometimes the off season or conditioning, right, if it's not relevant, it becomes long, and sometimes kids or any of us could disengage. But when they see the daily relevance of what they're doing and know that it will contribute to the outcome and help them and the team, it makes it more fun. And competition, wow, does that just bring life to any organization, I think, when it's done well. What before the podcast I was mentioning, and this was more personal for me as I paused my career, and I know this is your second time back at Fresno, and I was just wondering, and I asked you earlier, just kind of the things that maybe you're enjoying more, or your perspective now as you've returned. And I think our listeners would really, I think that'd be valuable for them just to hear maybe the things you appreciate even more now, maybe than what you did before as you're back.
Yeah, this job, you go so fast and so hard, right? I mean, it's never ending. And so you, or at least I never ever took any time to reflect, any time to reflect about anything, because you're just going, right? And so put together with some health issues that, kind of put things in perspective a little bit.
Yep.
But then the ability just to be around a coaching staff and be around the kids, because we talk football, but you know how big of a job it is, Bronco, to mentor these kids. Between 17 and 24 years old, there's a lot of growth and development going on, and it's not perfect every day. Each one of these kids have different challenges, and so to be able to draw on a long career of seeing a lot of things, to be able to help the kids through it, and I think they really appreciate it. So, understanding it's not just about the X's and O's, but you're actually making a difference to kids, in their lives, and for them to grow and develop, I think is has been very beneficial and rewarding. I think, being at home sitting around, I found that you need, and I didn't do a good job of this, there needs to be a purpose. You need to wake up every day with a purpose.
Yes.
I thought retirement's going to be okay. I had a health issue. Okay, I'll be fine. I've been doing this a long time, but I couldn't find a purpose, to tell you the truth. You play golf a couple times and then what? Right. And, I know you have a lot of purposes. You have your foundation. You do a lot of things that are great. I don't have a foundation. And I found that I was kind of struggling a little bit of not having a purpose.
Yeah.
This is my life, right? Yeah. And so to be able to come back to the very same office that I left, and just resume where I was, because I was going to get in football no matter what. And then Kalen, left to go to Washington, and he was my offensive coordinator here, before I stepped down. And so he just kept it rolling. It's such an easy transition because they kept the same practice schedules, same format, same terminology, everything. So it was a really easy transition to come back to it. Yeah. But I enjoy being around these guys and being around this coaching staff.
Yeah.
I just take a step back and I appreciate much more the opportunity that I have. Not that I didn't appreciate it before, but I was just in such a fast lane at the time. Yes. I still grind really hard and still watch all the film and do all the stuff and help game plan and things like that, but I just have a different mindset with it now, and it's really hard. There's been a lot of studies done on people who get burnt out and things, and you win a championship and then it's like, okay, it didn't feel rewarding. What I mean? There's a lot of that, of people who, I thought it was going to feel different.
Yeah.
And, we've been very fortunate to win a lot of championships over time. And for me at the time when we won championships, I didn't necessarily get a great feeling of exhilaration, what you think you're supposed to have, because you're just back at it the next day doing it again.
Yep.
Maybe you'll take a day or so, but but the way I look at it now, I look at it now more through the player's eyes.
Yeah.
How much I appreciate watching them be rewarded for their hard work.
Mm-hmm.
So to see their enthusiasm, their joy, that makes me feel better than anything. So that, and we just handed out the bowl rings the other day, or the championship rings, and to see the look on their face when they got the rings, and that they worked so hard and sacrificed so much for and earned it, and they had to earn it, 1-4, and then being a champion, they earned it. And, which I think was a great lesson to them in adversity that they could take the rest of their lives. So I think teaching life lessons, to answer your question about what my approach is now coming back, is really being appreciative of teaching the kids life lessons and really enjoying their joy.
Yeah.
And watching them be successful and overcome adversity and things like that, and bond together, right? Because not every day's perfect, right? And so the purpose of working hard to be successful for the players, right, is I think one of the biggest things, which it's not that I never really realized that, but I just appreciate it more now, I think.
What you said, and because of the space that I'm in, it resonates so well. I've used a couple of phrases, and you couldn't have said it better, but I've tried to explain to people, with distance has come clarity for me. Just a little more space has allowed it to be so much clearer. And the things that I think college football can do, especially as a head football coach, the purpose, the impact, and the importance of that role, as you said, 17 to 24-year-old young people. And it's the platform of football that's allowing us to develop and shape and groom and teach and be impactful. And every single day of the 125 or so that are on your team, someone is struggling with something, right?
Yeah.
And it never goes away. However, to see that, as you said, through the player's eyes is, I think, why college football should even exist, right? The game is great. The competition is great. The outcomes and all of that. But the development of the young people, I'm so clear about that now, and that purpose, and how you just said that was really magical. And there's very few coaches that have had success, had a brief pause, come back, and been able to even do it maybe even as effectively, or if not more so. And so I think you have a lot to share. And I think that line of thought is something that our listeners ought to pay a lot of attention to. And I just appreciate your time, Jeff, being on today. And I'll turn it back over to Brian just to close us out. But wish you all the best, and just so thankful you spent some time with us today.
Thank you, Bronco. Good luck to you too.
Thank you.
Well, and Jeff, Bronco was unsaid in there is you left the bar pretty high for somebody coming back from a coaching pause. You win double-digit games, you win a conference championship. I think it's only fair that you kind of turn that right over to Bronco going into wherever he lands next.
Yeah, I saw what you did there, Brian. You just added pressure even before I'm back in.
See how you are, Brian? I mean, you put it on him right away, but I guarantee you this: he's not going to have any problem doing that. He's done it his whole life, and he's not going to have any problem doing it again.
Jeff, I'm going to talk to you after this if you could find another co-host, because Brian just might have that might have just sealed the deal. Our relationship might be over now.
You know what? I love expectations, because when you meet them, the reward from that, and Jeff, you know this after the season you guys just had, especially going on that run after that 1-4 start. You know the satisfaction you get. There's nothing like it. We appreciate it so much for you stopping by, sharing some words of wisdom, and we will discuss maybe those expectations for Bronco when he comes back on another episode. So appreciate it, Jeff, and we'll catch you again next time here on the HeadCoachU podcast.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.